Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys are at. Hope you have a fantastic day. It's SoulSaint here, and we're continuing the Tool Dear SoulSaint Dungeon Edition. So, if you guys haven't already kind of been aware, we've been doing a bit of a showcasing across the board on terms of all the different currently actively used teams I am using in the dungeon area of Teleria. Right now, we've kind of pretty much concluded everything from the left all the way up to Fire Knight. As for the Fire Knight team, I already have a video established with my currently existing team. The only variance would be the fact that like maybe my G-Nuts might have changed in terms of some of the stats. But overall, the concept is pretty much the same, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that one for now. My Sand Devil team concept, however, though, which is what's going to be today's focus, is going to incorporate those same G-Nuts, so you'll get to see a little bit of it. But I just want to kind of go and say that this, the concept of our Tour de SoulSaint in terms of the Dungeon Edition was asked of me as a part of the subathon event that we had recently, and it was thrown in the Ideas channel. It's one of the channels we have in our Discord where people can throw some ideas that they want to see me showcase something or do something and test something or, you know, maybe bring a video out into fruition. So if you are enjoying this content and you want to help support and maybe bring some ideas to the forefront for the community to kind of see and maybe have some fun with, even if it's a memes or if it's actually a really strong comp that maybe nobody's aware of, then feel free to join the Discord. It'll be in the description below. We have a link for you guys. So, anyways, with that being said, Sand Devils 25, excuse me. They nerfed this boss recently, which has allowed a lot of opportunities for people to do some pretty nifty things. Now, I am going to show you guys my main team, which you guys are going to see here. Before I do that, though, I want to see if my hypothetical team I had built for somebody recently works, but I don't have it built here per se, but I'll try to see if maybe we have the resources for us to be able to showcase the other alternatives, or maybe I'll just explain the alternatives and you can kind of build it from there. But today, we're going to be swinging our nuts at Sand Devil. It is kind of a tried and true method because, you know, NMAX HPs are pretty important, and they both do like roughly about 30% each, so 30, 30, 60, and then if you reset it with someone like Yumiko, which we have here today, or Kaimar, for that matter, you get another 30, 30, which is another 60. 60 plus 60 is 120. Your goal is to hit 100% of the boss's HP. We're over that. So we got a lot of value there. Now, before, in my previous video that I've done for a Sand Devil showcase, I used to use champions like Ayla and Ruella, who still work in today's climate, but the account's grown a little bit, and I have some more consistency in terms of sleepers in Sippy, as well as debuffers in Ramontu. Now, Ramontu was one of the ones that might have been a little bit harder to incorporate, considering that he, on his A2, which is what we're going to be using for debuffing purposes, is a 4-hitter. The boss has recently been nerfed or adjusted to a point where the shade counters, the sleep counters that you have, or the counters that he has before he wakes up, has been increased, as well as the amount of mitigation that the boss has prior to debuffs has also went down. So any debuffing strategy that you would use in this comp, primarily the two most important ones is going to be decreased defense and weaken. It still works. It's actually even easier now. But with Ramontu versus Ruella, I net more debuffs, which is what I was looking for in the concept of this team comp. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So it makes it easier, but it's definitely not mandatory. I could throw in Ruella, I could throw in Ayla right now, and they still do the same thing that you would need them to do. But here's how it's going to go. The boss is, I believe, a speed of 270 for Sand Devil 25. And since you have to hit a certain accuracy check, that's also been nerfed too as well. Makes it a little bit easier. As a matter of fact, we're just going to go ahead and pull up his stats. I like to refer to Hell Hades' Stages tool as a part of our focus here to find out information. And in particular, it's a really good resource if you're trying to find out stats for checking areas of where you want to be at. A lot of his calculations are at 95% chance to succeed in landing a debuff, and of course, 90% respectively if you're trying to resist something. So, for the Sand Devil, his resistance is 470, which means that you're going to want roughly around 495 or higher to net that 95% plus aspect. Now, there's always a 3% variable that exists in this game that you cannot mitigate. It's an RNG element that's added to the game to spice up the world of Teleria. Some people love it, some people hate it. But there are some exceptions to those rules, like irresistibility, which our Sippy is going to bring to the table today. Her A1, which is sleep mechanic that we're going to be introducing to incorporate against this boss, is very ideal. And that's her main focus. She's also complementary in some other areas, but that's kind of it. So we don't need to worry about accuracy for her. But for Ramontu, hitting that accuracy requirement is actually kind of important, and we'll show his build here down the road. Which is why we're going to have him over like maybe 495 speed, accuracy. Now, the boss's speed is 270, which is important because of what we're going to be bringing to the table too. Ramontu does bring decreased speed, so the way we want the boss mechanic to work is that Siffy opens the gate with sleeping him, which allows us to apply debuffs because he's immune to debuffs when he's awake. Then we have Ramontu, and I believe Yumiko goes actually before Ramontu. So it's Siffy, Yumiko, she does a throwaway turn because we want to use her to reset after everybody's gone. in the team. So she throws her A2 in there, which is a Hex. That's just one extra debuff to allow the mitigation to go down one step. And then, of course, Ramontu follows up with the most important part of the debuff section, which is decrease defense and weaken. And then if we net the decreased speed and the block buffs, that's nice. But we don't want anybody else to hit the boss at that point because there are a limited amount of sleep counters, and we don't want him to wake up until he gets his turn. Because if he wakes up before he gets his turn, when he gets his turn, he's going to do damage. He's going to one-shot the team, and we want to avoid that. So we have it speed tuned with decreased speed in mind for it to land, and that's where it becomes very, very important. We have the boss when he does decrease speed. If you have your G-Nuts go faster than 256 speed, they will actually get ahead of him if he has decreased speed, which means that they'll do their A3s and wake him up before he gets his turn. So we have him tuned down so that they don't go above 256. The sweet spot's 255 or below. And we have them just below that. So I have my fastest, which is the one that has Phantom Touch at 255. So he'll go before the second G-Nut, which will have Soul Reap, which is a backup mechanic. To go afterwards. So the way it's going to go Sify, Yumiko, Ramontu, boss wakes up, G-Nut, and then we reset with Yumiko and, of course, the rest of the team. So I'm going to show you a quick run here. Believe it or not, because they nerfed a lot of the stat requirements for this boss, it's very, very easy now with decent builds to be able to just destroy the boss's HP with max hitters. And you're looking for a cap of 308,291 damage output for each enemy max HP hit, which you're going to see here. And that pretty much gets you the guaranteed 100% or more, in this case, for damage. Now, what are the mandatories here? One, you need that sleep to land because it sets up everybody else in this fight. Also, we want to avoid that first turn being active from the boss, right? So the sleep is the most important thing. That can be 3%ed by everybody, except champions like Sify, who her A1 says it's irresistible. And then after that, you want to decrease defense, which will help your enemy max HP hitters hit their cap damage, unless their build is significant, kind of like how mines are, to land that capped damage. And then from there, it's pretty much good. You're good to go. And then you reset. The increased speeds and all the extra stuff that you get from like Sify and all that just makes it sure that you're able to get ahead. With the Ruella comp, I did have her prioritize the A2, which was to do the debuffs, but then in the second part where we're speeding, we get to the second rotation of the A3s for the G-Nuts, I have her A3 to kind of push the team ahead so that they can make sure they stay in front of the boss, and that's how we were able to get the second set of A3s to clear. Well, with Sify, her sleep is the A1, and then she follows up and takes care of that portion of the Ruella to push the team ahead with her A2, which gives the G-Nuts increased defense, making them a little bit more potent. So she's kind of best in slot as a sleep agent for this team. But you could use champions like Adeline, who gives you the decreased attack 2, as well as an extra debuff, as well as the sleep. You could use Ayla, again, like how we used as an epic for the Sylvan Watchers. Anyone who has a sleep is value here. You just got to watch out for that 3%. And then, of course, any decreased defense and weakened champion is ideal in the place of Ramontu. So I did use Ruella. You could use Rosin. You could use... insert various champions that have both of those abilities inside... both of those debuffs inside one ability. And then, of course, a resetter with Yumiko. Now, I did want to propose to you guys something that I have built out for other people. One of the first disheartening things that you hear about from players is like, oh, I don't have a resetter like Yumiko. Well, rest assured that you can make a variation to a comp like this that would drop something like Yumiko and Ramontu and enable your team to be able to do something else. So now, this is incorporating a champion, and I'm just going to show you guys the team. I'm not going to do it because they're not built, but I'll just show you the essence of what the team would look like. So, in essence, I tested this, and it does work, but you do have to be careful about the 3% factor that still exists. The replacement for someone like Ramontu is actually Sissia, believe it or not. And the reason why is that she can get decreased defense and weaken. It is conditional to the burn, but the burn is actually an important factor of this particular fight. So in boss fight mechanics, HP burn is the equivalent to like 3%, for lack of better words, in terms of HP damage, right? So the application of the HP burn doesn't do anything. You do get a little on-hit damage from the A2 and whatnot, but that's complementary, right? But HP burn placement, you open up with the A3 to put a burn on. Then you do, once it lands, you do decreased defense and weaken. That sets up the G-Nuts. But it also activates that burn. So when she places it, you have the burn in play. It's a 3-turn duration. Activation number 1 gives you 3%. The boss wakes up. That's activation number 2. And then, of course, when the boss gets his final turn, that's number 3. So that nets you about roughly 9%. And that's important because you're not using a resetter like Yumiko to get the last 30% you're looking for. Remember, the G-Nuts are only doing 30 and 30, so that's 60%, right? Well, this is where a champion, it's kind of a resetter, but it's not a resetter in the traditional sense of someone like Yumiko or Kaimar or Crixia for that matter, that can fully reset the team's abilities. You can use someone like Aniri. And the reason why that's kind of important, and this is where you would have to kind of make sure your positioning is important and all these other aspects of the team and the priority setting. So I would set it up more so like this, where Aniri's in the front because her revive on death mechanic, everyone will die, but because her revive on death mechanic brings her back to life, or the person in the priority slot, so it goes from lead role, slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4, right? You want whoever's in the lead role to get the revive on death, which would be Aniri in this case, so that she can revive the G-Nut, and her revive, her A3, actually fully resets the cooldowns of the skill of the champion that got revived. So it's kind of a reset in a sense, but without being an actual reset to some capacity for the whole team. And what you would do is you would position your strongest or your most capable, or in this case, maybe the G-Nut that has Soul Reap in there to net you the last little bit of 30% you're looking for. So think about it this way. G-Nut number 1 is 30%. G-Nut number 2 is 30%. The boss gets his turn and kills everybody. Then you revive and you get the G-Nut, and that's how you get the other 30%. That gets you 90% in total. Now, how do we make up that 10%? That's where the Sissia's HP burn and the on-hit damage that everybody else does plays into play. And pretty much the burns themselves cover 9% of the HP of the boss. That puts you at 99%. Any additional on-hit damage you do at that point will probably net you that 1%. Or think about that Soul Reap. Still something that you have in the barrel, right? And that'll net you the last little bit you need to do a full 100% of the boss's HP. So resetters are not required for the boss, and because they got new nerf lately to make it a lot more easier and accommodating, these type of comps came into play where you can make up that difference of what you're looking for. So very, very strong combination of champions you could do. It is kind of nice to have like someone like Sify who can enable the G-Nuts to do their output effectively. But this team is kind of conditional to like making sure that, you know, everything that sets up is it does its job. So you still have the 3% of a sleep if you're not using Sify. You still have this 3% factor that you have to watch out for HP burns on Sissia. And then of course you have the potential 3% from hitting the weakened and decreased defense. Now, I don't have any area bonuses applied towards Shoguns, but obviously if you put in ignore percent on Sand Devil, as well as like crit damage, that'll also make your builds a little bit more capable, and you'll be able to hit that 10% per hit from the G-Nuts more effectively. If you don't have it, if you have one G-Nut but not the other, there's always alternatives. Look for an enemy max HP hitter that can make up that difference. Think about Marius, which everybody can start shooting their shot for, right? You can make progression towards him. He can be one of the G-Nuts, or in this case, you know, you could probably consider bringing in, instead of having the Aniri, because you have the 2 G-Nuts and Marius, you can drop Aniri. Because Aniri is only there to enable your G-Nut to do that one extra little bit of hits there, right? So there's a lot of variance to this team, but the overall scope of it is to hit that 100% with enemy max HP, and that's kind of what the G-Nuts are for. Now, I am going to show you the build so you can kind of get an idea for pretty much, I showed you everybody outside of Ramantu, so I'll only probably focus on him. If you want to see the G-Nuts and their glory, you can refer to my other videos in the tour, the SoulSaint Dungeon Edition, as well as Yumiko. She's also there too as well. Sippy I'm going to keep in the barrel there for the most part, but the main thing is that you want to hit a certain speed. So when you first sleep the boss, he's not under decreased speed, he's still 270 speed. So as long as you're over that 270 speed, you will go before him. So 271 or higher is ideal. I gave myself a little bit more just to make sure. At 272 speed, just to make sure that he stays ahead of the boss and it's no issues whatsoever. Because, you know, if you're right on the line, sometimes that may give you a little bit of a stat check that could be kind of a little bit problematic. Now, if you take a look here, I'm at 492, so I'm actually a little bit under the ideal requirement to hit the 95%, but getting pretty close, so it kind of serves the purpose of what I'm looking for. I'll be honest with you guys too as well. I could probably glyph up and make up the difference, and truthfully, because of the way my builds are for G-Nut at this point in time, I don't necessarily need any of the debuffs to land as much as I used to before the nerf. The nerf has made the stat requirements to hit the top cap so much more easier now that my builds are overkill to hit the 10%. So it's very, very strong. Now, I do think that having some kind of debuff in play, whether that's from Yumiko or something like that, to kind of reduce the damage mitigation is ideal to make sure I hit it. But I'm willing to bet if I were to just go ignore percent in the area bonuses, and I probably could even consider taking out Ramantu, and I don't even need a debuffer at that point. But that's a little bit of a bold claim. I'm just saying in general, it's better to have it just as a safety net, just to make sure that there's no issues whatsoever. But if you are one of those type of people that are growing your account still and you're still making progression, decreased defense and weaken are kind of the big ones there. Any extra debuffs you can land in place of that so that his mitigation is reduced, which is what the mechanic of this boss is based off of. For every little bit of incoming damage he takes, he has a percentage of scaling of mitigation that can be decreased as long as you put more debuffs on him. So you could put Toxic Set on a Ramontu who also has debuffs. You could also put it on your Resetter to give you that extra little bit of debuff chance, and that'll give you closer towards that debuff bar being filled up to give you that less mitigation so they can hit their cats a little bit better. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, but after a certain point, it's overkill, and that's kind of where I'm at on my build, so I kind of keep it there. The Soul Reap is also additional. It's just like a little extra added flavor to make sure I'm safe, you know, and you kind of get the idea of it at that point. But yeah, with the nerf, it makes it so much easier. So I'm curious. You guys, when I was doing the subathon earlier this month, I actually noticed that a lot of people, after the nerf came out on Sand Devil and Shoguns for that matter, and IT, I forgot about that one too. A lot of people were telling me in the comments or in the chat, they were like, yo, I was able to get to the final stage now, whereas I couldn't do that before. So they made it so much more easier. Let me know. What did you guys use? Are you already there, or are you on your way? I'm curious. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, always remember, stay ascended.